Get the Friendo Club set up today and get access to over 700 Going In Raw bonus episodes, our monthly Big Blue predictions challenges, and the ability to ask questions at Going In Raw. We also offer the Steven Larson comic book and exclusive Friendo Club t-shirt. Just hit join here at youtube.com/Steven Larson or go to patreon.com/Steven Larson to sign up. Hey, friendo, Steve here.
And Larson.
And welcome back to Going In Raw, the only pro wrestling podcast you need to be listening to. It's Wednesday, which means it's time for us to read a bunch of your hot takes, and then we discuss them because why not? First up, from Be Kind Rewind, what a great name, says Vince Russo was ahead of his time. He was all about grabbing your attention and giving you reasons to tune back in, bro. With so many alternatives at your fingertips these days, this style could work well in the modern day, bro. And he clarifies, sure, it was at the cost of long-term logical storytelling, but you can't have everything. Was Vince Russo ahead of his time, Larson?
No, I think he's a product of his times because, the late 90s was all about just overstimulation. It was all about sensory overload, and you talk about Vince, or you hear Vince talk about his inspirations for his time writing Raw specifically. It was like Jerry Springer.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Stuff that was, that was produced to shock you, to elicit a response.
In your face. Too hot for
face.
TV.
All that stuff, yeah. So I don't know if ahead of his time is accurate. Product of his times, absolutely. But if you take the part here that Be Kind Rewind says he was all about grabbing your attention, giving you reasons to tune back, is that idea, that philosophy, something that pro wrestling television as a whole could benefit from? Yeah, I think that's just kind of basic storytelling. You watch any series, when you end an episode, the whole idea is there should be a reason there for you to watch the next episode, and so on and so forth. And whether it's just you're so engrossed into the character arcs, or there's a dramatic cliffhanger, whatever the case may be, yeah, I mean, the idea should be once that show ends, you want to know what's going to happen next. Mm-hmm. And across the board on wrestling television, some companies worse at it than others, it'd be great if that was kind of first and foremost in their minds when constructing wrestling television.
Yeah, I can understand. I can absolutely understand, as loath as I am to praise Vince Russo. We're not talking about the content of his product, of his writing. We're talking about the philosophy behind it, the Crash TV thing. And I do think, to the point of being ahead of one's time, and I agree with you 1,000%, you and I being teenagers of the 90s, understand and consumers absolutely the popular culture back then. We used to go to multiple movies every single Friday and Saturday back in the day when we were in, junior college, and preceding that when we were in high school. You and I were big consumers, obviously, of cable television, MTV, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And obviously the kind of content and programming philosophy that you saw television specifically switched to back then was for lack of a better term, appealing to a shorter attention span. These days and I know that there's days left on the clock for TikTok. The TikTok short form content philosophy, I think, does have an interesting, or you can trace its origins back to that kind of philosophy. These days, there's different ways to do that, but, having content that is easily digestible in that short form as well, you can take a segment from the Attitude Era and stick it on TikTok, and maybe it would work because the matches back then, Vince Russo wanted to keep them really short. He thought the wrestling was the least interesting aspect of pro wrestling.
He had no interest in wrestling.
He had no interest in it. And I'm much more sort of in the middle. I think really good wrestling can be an attractive element of pro wrestling. I just don't think it should exist for no other reason for it to exist. It's all one big pot of ingredients, and if mixed together well, you come up with a pretty good stew. In the case of Vince Russo's philosophy, yeah, I mean, as we've seen, there are a ton of clips from the Attitude Era that do play well without context. Just the fun aspect of some of those clips back in the day, whether it's Austin hitting McMahon with, in the hospital with the bedpan, Foley coming off Hell in a Cell. It's a very clippable era, the Attitude Era. So, I mean, before his time, I kind of feel like you're right. Like, I think he saw the landscape and saw where things were going and was like, hey, Vince, Vince McMahon, it might not be a terrible idea to update your fucking product because it still feels like it's a product of the 80s. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, having that understanding, yeah, I definitely think that Vince Russo has a very important place in pro wrestling. It's just him and Bischoff alike, those types guys, they're trying, instead of like doing new stuff, they just sort of coast on what they
hold
did
on to
30 years ago.
Whatever contributions they might have made 30 some years ago. Yeah. It'd be interesting. Bit of a tangent here. You talk about the Attitude Era with Vince Russo telling Vince McMahon, hey, you got to update your product to get with the times, to capture the zeitgeist of mid-90s. And you look how WWE is presenting their televised product, not a whole lot of changes, obviously. In terms of the format of the show, generally how it's put together. Obviously, or I should say, I would imagine maybe there's segments throughout the show which they think, let's write this with the idea that it is short enough and self-contained, therefore we could put it up on YouTube, social media, whatever, and get some hits on it. But in terms of the actual construction of the show, not a whole lot's changed for a while.
Yeah, sure.
If anybody could mix up the language, the visual language of pro wrestling to get with the times, present it in a different way. I mean, we talk about this all the time when TNA, when reality TV was maybe at its most popular, took the fly on the wall approach to their backstage stuff. And I thought that worked really well, and it's a really interesting approach to photographing professional wrestling, because it's so different than how it's been done historically. Is there a way, and I don't even know what the answer is to this, I'm just posing the question, topic conversation, that short form videos can inform the visual language of pro wrestling? And I'm not just talking about a bunch of fast cuts, stuff like that, like literally the visual language of the medium.
Oh man, I mean, I think that would take something like Quibi blowing up. Remember Quibi?
Vaguely.
It was the thing they put I forget who exactly, pumped just tons of money into it, and they gave a ton of money to creators because they thought that you could tell, people would want to look at their phones for basically prestige television.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah. Now I remember that. Yeah.
And so you got a lot of stuff that ended up on Netflix and Prime or whatever that was supposed to be made. Homecoming, I think, is probably the biggest of those to come out of it. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, the thing is, if you expand beyond that, just to sort of pop culture today, it's consumed in so many different ways. Like you look at prestige television, for example, where you have between 8 and 12 episode seasons, and then there's a 2-year gap and you get season 2.
Maybe longer.
Right. And so, but the seasons that you get, the 10 episode seasons you get, are 10-hour Oscar worthy movies. Severance season 1 could easily, if that was, if they were able to tell that story in a 2.5-hour block and it retained the amount of intrigue, that's a fucking movie right there. Mm-hmm. But they do it over the span, and then the give to that is this: it's so good you got to wait forever to get to the next season. And then you have stuff like TikTok, which, I mean, shit, I don't know, they're kind of trying to adopt. When it comes to fan reaction, back in the day, we had, here's the Nitro College party, watch party that's going on. This fraternity sent us a videotape, and now it's let's watch Con Man lose his shit over Tiffany Stratton cashing in.
Yeah. But that's a small part of the show. I just don't know if there's a way. I mean, that this could speak to kind of entertainment writ large too. Because that's the...
Well, dude, their speed. Their speed. They have that on Twitter. They got the speed title, which it wouldn't shock me if when their deal with Twitter was up, they tried to find a different outlet for that.
It's possible.
Or stayed on Twitter if they think that's still valuable there. So, yeah, I mean, I think they have actually tried that with, speed. I mean, at this point, YouTube Shorts elongated to 3 minutes long, which is the length of a speed match, like the upper limit of a speed match. So, but yeah, in terms of like that format informing what happens on television, I don't know. I kind of feel like the two formats kind of collide a bit too much,
Yeah, it's the battle that, prestige TV or even Hollywood's had for that, more so Hollywood, in terms of battling short-term attention spans with entertainment on the phone. And it seems like Hollywood's gone the direction to just more.
Sure.
More scope, more runtime, more budget.
More budget, really.
And it's all about spectacle. And in the process, a lot of the, go back to the 70s, 80s, even 90s movies that were made, the smaller movies, the cheaper movies, those don't get made as often. Those turn into the prestige TV shows now.
They do. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I picked up, I think it was like Filmmaker Magazine. This was like a year ago. And right now there's like a crisis going on in the indie film community because there's no money there. It's like they're not getting picked up the way they used to get picked up.
Nope.
And it's like where back in the day, it was like you make an little indie movie, you put it in a bunch of festivals, it gets snapped up, and then you have a Hollywood career. And that doesn't really happen, I guess, from what I understand anymore.
Now you got to make like a short form narrative series on, well, you got about 4 days left, TikTok.
Yeah.
Capture the zeitgeist there and then get an agent and try to parlay that into something.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Let's move on to the next one from Hippopotamus. How do I say it? Hippopotamus. There you go. Just replace the T with the P. It says Cody shouldn't beat Cena at WrestleMania.
That's all it says. I wish there was more to this, an explanation, rationale.
Cody should not beat Cena.
That Cena should win his 17th world title at WrestleMania?
Yeah, I guess so.
I mean, I guess if you just want that moment, sure. I just feel like the more intriguing story is that he tries and fails and has to get back to that and then succeeds. Because so often, at least the reputation is lol Cena wins. Things are kind of easy for him. You have title, I want that, he gets it, And for his final run, especially when he's gone, 2,500 days roughly without winning a match, I don't feel like it should be easy for him. There should be struggles. There should be adversity. It'll make the moment when he wins all the more meaningful if there's an arc to it rather than he shows up, he wins the Rumble, he shows up Mania, wins the title.
We've talked about that. One thing we haven't talked about, this is such a damned if you do, damned if you don't moment for Cody, isn't it? If Cena wins the Rumble, let's say, and him and Cody, they have their promos between the Rumble and WrestleMania. They do a big Vegas thing or whatever they do. And come WrestleMania, they put on this match that so eloquently tells Cena's story as No Country for Old Men. You got lucky in the Rumble. Maybe even they do the thing where in the Rumble, he doesn't necessarily win it. He just
kind of
doesn't lose it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so against Cody, they tell this story where Cena has to battle from under because Cody is the now and Cena's the old. Gets hits with a ton of crossroads and a super crossroads. He still kicks out. Crowd's going crazy for this shit. He battles, loses. Because this crowd can feel it. They want it. They need it right now. He loses to Cody. On the other hand, they do the same thing, but he beats Cody. Cody's in a shit spot regardless. Because either he lost to John Cena, and now he's got to get his title back, or he just crushed everybody's dreams in that stadium.
Well, I think it would, in the latter situation, it would depend on Cody's response after beating Cena. If he celebrates like just another match, yeah, I get that. But if it's a situation where it's like, he almost feels guilty about denying Cena that moment because he knows how important and special those moments are. Just happened for him this year, WrestleMania 40. and given his relationship with John, that's got to be part of the story as well.
You don't think the crowd reaction the next time they see Cody might snowball? Because
I doubt that.
regardless of what his reaction to it in the moment after the match, Cody beat Cena, and everybody wanted to see Cena do that. And then he comes out, he might get booed.
I don't know, but here's the thing. I don't know if it's a universal thing now where people are like, oh yeah, I want to see Cena break that record. I want to see Cena win number 17.
It's not, but if they tell the right story, I think they can get the vast majority of people to be there. I really do. If they Cena's got a lot of goodwill. And especially if they tell that story, because he has lost a lot, but if they tell that story and they tell it really, really well, I think they can get a lot of people on board with that. So
they could. Know. But you got to balance that with whatever Cody's side of it is. So then when Cody does win or doesn't, whatever, I guess the situation is if they fast track the Cena story, by that he gets in the Rumble and he's in there. He's like, oh, I can still do this. And he starts throwing people over the top rope. Oh, hey, John Cena of 2007 still in here somewhere, throwing more people over the top. Gets wins leading up to WrestleMania, and it's all about Cena rebuilding and re-establishing himself as, the guy. And Cody has to face that. I guess if this again, it's all how they put together the story and deliver it. That's the key.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the issue would have to be then Cody would have to get his win back over Cena.
Oh yeah, sure.
Whereas I feel like if Cody beats Cena, I don't necessarily think Cena has to get his win back from Cody.
Well, here's the thing, though. He would, because he has to beat the record.
Well, let's go to this next hot take. Let's do this one because it kind of dovetails with that.
Awesome.
AJ Otani says John Cena needs to win the World Heavyweight Championship for number 17 in order to legitimize the belt after Crown Royal.
No, it's the opposite. He can't win that one because it's not a legitimate title. Because it's not a real top title, and you can't win the consolation prize to beat the record. You can't.
But is it a consolation prize if John Cena wins it to beat the record?
It is, though. It is because he didn't beat Cody, and Cody beat Roman.
What if before Cena wins 17 with the World Heavyweight Championship, we have Rollins and we have Punk with that title? And it made different pay-per-views.
That's different. No, you're right. That's different. When's the next Crown Royal?
Oh, that's been announced. I think what AJ is referring to is Crown Jewel last year, where Cody beat Gunther.
Oh no, I know. No, I'm saying looking ahead. I think Fightful had a thing that like June was the only Saudi show right now on the schedule. There would need to be some amount of like lineage, and I mean like. Somebody with that title would have to beat a Roman. Like, if Punk beats Gunther sometime, Mania, I don't know, and Punk beats Roman at SummerSlam, and Cena beats Punk after that, after Punk has turned that title into a main event title, then absolutely. But, man, what are the chances of that all happening?
Oh, I think there's a pretty good chance Punk wins that title this year. It is. It's here's the thing,
and legitimizes it. He'd have to main event with it.
Yeah,
I think Punk has a much better chance of legitimizing that title than Gunther does. Sadly, I love Gunther.
I mean, but that's that's the creative behind Gunther's run so far.
It is,
not
yeah.
Being positioned, and it's not his fault. Like if he was positioned,
I'm not saying it is.
No, I'm not saying. I'm just reiterating that point. That if he's being positioned as a dude who does consistently main event pay-per-views defending that title against top-tier competition, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
You're 1,000% right, but that's why we're having that conversation.
That's why we're having this conversation, because if it's Rollins and Gunther at Mania, Rollins wins the title so he could drop it to Punk.
Sorry, Seth.
At SummerSlam, then Punk could have it for a couple of months, have a match with Cena. But even then, that's a small window.
It's a bunch of short reigns.
I know. It's not an issue then, I think, of legitimizing the title as on par with the Undisputed title. It's just a lot of passing that title around, where if you do that too much, then you have the question is, oh, you're kind of delegitimizing the title by having it passed around so much.
Yeah, I know. You need somebody to beat Gunther now. Like, here's the thing. It's more likely that somebody beats Gunther now. Somebody like, and when I say somebody, I mean, there's like honestly 2 names at this point. Sorry, Seth. It's Punk and it's Drew.
Mm-hmm.
If either of those guys beats Gunther now and holds that title and dominates Rollins, sorry, Seth, all the big names. And Roman's got to be, here's the thing. All this is put to rest if somebody holding that world title beats Roman.
Yeah.
If somebody does that, the title is made in the main event. But that ain't gonna, this time, I feel like the creative behind it simply acknowledges that this is a secondary title. Yeah. Now, that might change once Punk gets his hands on it, if that's what's going to happen. And I could see that. Because Punk
I guess it depends if Cody's still holding the Undisputed title or Roman, whoever. It depends who's holding the other belt, too.
Yeah, it does. I think
Which
Cody's
is a shame that creative is not consistent or in any way interested in presenting those 2 titles on the same level.
It's weird. It really is. But then if you look at the guy booking the stuff, he always made sure that, ironically, the big gold belt was the title, while the other belt, not so much.
It was the World Heavyweight Championship was the title because that's the one you usually had.
Exactly. Yeah. And
so that one was the title.
And he made sure that shit was main eventing.
Mm-hmm.
He made sure that was main eventing. Before we continue on with our next hot take, let's go ahead and talk about the sponsor for today's show.
Let's do it. Let's take a quick break here. Get a word from our sponsor, DraftKings Pick 6. The NFL playoffs are here, Steve, and with the wild card round in the books, time is running out to play DraftKings Pick 6 as the official daily fantasy sports partner of the NFL. DraftKings does fantasy sports like no one else.
And it's easy getting started with Pick 6. All you got to do is select 2 or more players and choose if they'll have more or less of a particular stat, like touchdowns, yardage, sacks, and more. And check this out. DraftKings is now making it even sweeter for first-time players. New Pick 6 customers play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits.
So win more cash on Pick 6. Download the DraftKings Pick 6 app and use code RAW. That's code RAW for new customers to play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits, only on DraftKings Pick 6. The crown is yours.
And here's some Pick 6 disclosures from Bill DraftKings.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 and over. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 30 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos.
All right. Thank you, Bill. Next up on our hot takes, we've got Drew Diesel, who says, Triple H needs to kickstart the Bianca-Rhea feud ASAP. This could be the next-gen Charlotte versus Becky rivalry and the ticket to giving the women another historic WrestleMania main event. You think they should do that this year?
I think they should, but they're not going to. I agree that feud is probably the next best shot of the women main eventing WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. You have the 2 top stars in WWE's women's division facing off in a feud for, I think, the first time, or, obviously a first time since they've both been main eventers.
Yeah.
That feud's going to be money whenever they do it. They've teased it several times. They're on opposing brands now. Bianca's tag champ. Once Jade comes back, we don't know what the story's going to be then. You got to imagine that's going to lead to something at WrestleMania. Don't know what it is exactly. Mm-hmm. So if this is going to happen, probably the best bet is not this year, but not next year, but Mania 42 in 2026. Yeah. Would be the most likely kind of time frame I would think this would happen. Mm-hmm. I can't wait. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah.
But as much as I'd love to see it soon, I just don't think it's happening for another year at least.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. They have not teased this at all.
Not in a while. Not in a while, no.
I think that this Bianca who attacked Jade story, you'd think is going to culminate at WrestleMania. Like in terms of whoever did it, she's going to have a match against them.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it. I don't know. I mean, like they could tell something pretty elaborate if they want to do. Geez, have they done? I know they've done Bianca. They've done Bianca Becky.
Mm-hmm.
They've done Bianca Sasha.
Mm-hmm.
Have they done Bianca Charlotte at Mania? I don't think they have, right?
No.
You would think that might be the deal, unless it's Charlotte Tiffany. There's a couple of big players that they can get involved, but Charlotte, Bianca, because here's the thing, Bianca's going to have the new WrestleMania streak. I think she has like a win streak there, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does.
Okay. If Charlotte, it doesn't matter who it is, Bianca's going to win at WrestleMania this year. And then, yeah, I mean, they've teased it. What I'd like them to do is continue to tease it. I thought Bianca should have showed up last night on Raw. We're filming this on Tuesday. And have her tease Rhea a little bit. I think that would have been a good move. But I don't see her winning the Rumble this year. She'll probably come out really early. Maybe she'll be an Iron Woman again. I think she's done that at least once. I know she's done that at least once. She might have done that twice. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's going to happen this year. But I'd like, I do think they need to get back to it.
Yeah, I do too.
Maybe it's the kind of thing they really want to build to it, or they really want to like hold back on it until people really are wanting to see it.
That could be.
But they really got to build Bianca beyond. Who attacked my partner?
Yeah, I know. I mean, Bianca's got to. The story with Jade, whatever that ends up being, whoever attacked Jade, eventually they're going to drop those tag titles. Maybe they'll feud, maybe they won't. And once Bianca gets back to being focused on a singles competitor, sometime in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
My brain, I still think it's 2024 sometimes.
Yeah, I noticed that just a second ago. I was like,
yeah, you said Mania this year, last year. She'll get back to being a singles competitor, and maybe next fall, this fall, they'll really start teasing about Bianca and Rhea.
Still New Year, man. We're just at 2 weeks right now.
I know. So if I had talked to you at all in 2 weeks, I could see you and say, "Happy New Year, pal."
I'd be so much happier. I'm joking. Next hot take is from Heroes Golden. Says Jeff Hardy did not lie when he said he would be bigger than Cena if he had stayed focused and clean from his addictions. Now, I've seen takes on this thing called internet, where people who lived through the Hardy years, where he was on the top, had the title, and witnessed the reactions to him, knew or understand this and agree with it. Do you agree with that? I don't think you were watching at the time.
I didn't watch a whole lot of Jeff Hardy's singles run, no, in WWE, the initial one. I do understand people really, to this day, people love Jeff Hardy. I think he checked all the boxes except maybe one, and that's his promos. It's never the best promo. Now, could all his other skills kind of overcome the promo area? Maybe. There's a lot to be said for aura and presentation, and he had that.
Yeah.
And I think people respect the hell out of him for putting his body on the line for our entertainment. He has that. Mm-hmm. I don't know if he could have been, more popular, the number one guy. But obviously, he probably would have been a hell of a lot more successful in those days had he, as he says, stayed focused and didn't have the substance abuse issues.
I feel like there's a name, and it's an ironic name because what you said with the promo stuff. But when you talk about his aura and mystique, and it's probably his most popular feud back when he was on top, and that was CM Punk. Mm-hmm. I could see Jeff Hardy being a CM Punk level popular guy.
Yeah.
But CM Punk was not a John Cena level
Nope.
popular guy.
Nope,
He did, yes, and I love Punk. I love him.
He was a tier below that.
He was. And maybe, dude, I don't know. Look, maybe if Vince McMahon was truly a CM Punk, I mean, he had the title on him 434 days, but he never main evented WrestleMania. Maybe, just maybe, if Vince McMahon really put everything behind Punk, then if he was that type of guy, then he could have been to the levels of John Cena. But John Cena is a unique individual. He is an interesting fella.
Yeah.
So, so I think Jeff Hardy could have been like a CM Punk level guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, not A, but a super B plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a super duper B plus.
Maybe
Like
even
above
A-.
Edge,
Yeah.
above even Daniel Bryan. Boy, people love Daniel Bryan.
People do love Daniel Bryan.
They single-handedly brought it. So like a Daniel Bryan, CM Punk,
Yeah.
that level.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Cena, I don't know, man. Cena checks every box. Even in the second half of his career, he checked the match guy. That dude was putting on phenomenal freaking matches.
Could put on really good matches, yeah.
You know, and he's a 10 promo
Yeah.
presentation at the very least. I know you were not high on him being a 10 presentation, but it was definitely a thing. Like,
it was
he
unique,
had
and
his
he made it
thing.
his own thing. Yeah.
And it sold just shit tons of merchandise. I considered him a 10, but yeah, that's a tough
That is.
tough.
That
gig
is.
to
I mean, you're
get to.
talking one of probably the 4 most popular superstars in WWE history.
Yeah.
That's tough.
But I think if WWE had sort of a different philosophy, if Vince had a different philosophy for what he wanted to see on top, I think Jeff, dude, people love Jeff Hardy.
Oh,
Boy,
yeah.
they loved him.
Yeah, they do.
They loved
Absolutely.
him, and he really did itch a certain, you know, man. It was one of those things where WWE, especially around that era, didn't get a whole lot of right in terms of capturing the zeitgeist at that point. Jeff Hardy was one of those guys, though.
Yeah.
And people knew it. People saw it. So,
Yeah.
you know, who am I to say what would have happened in an alternate universe? It's hard to see that being that, like, his, you know, demons being the one thing that would keep him away from Cena status.
Yeah.
It would have taken like major front office push. And,
Absolutely.
and yeah, you're right. Like, at a certain point, like, you got to be able to drop that Cena Punk type promo, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't even think he was as good a promo as Shawn Michaels.
No.
And Shawn Michaels was not a great promo. He was a competent promo. He's a good
He could.
promo.
Shawn
He was
Michaels
a better
could-
promo than Brett was.
Yeah, and there was moments where Shawn could be very good.
Yeah. I mean, the DX stuff was great
Yeah.
because it was just sort of him being him and vulgar, you know?
Yeah. The blind cinephile here with a hot take says 2-night SummerSlam and 2-night shows other than WrestleMania make WrestleMania feel less special and oversaturate shows and audiences. So essentially, 2-night pay-per-views apart from WrestleMania, no way.
Interesting.
I can understand this viewpoint, and I guess if it gets with maybe the exception of the Rumble, because there's something to be said for having a 2-night Rumble and one Rumble main events one day and the other Rumble main events the other. I can get on board with that because Rumble is a major event and has implications for WrestleMania. So that I can understand. Apart from that, you got to start to worry about oversaturation. I mean, it's something that WWE doesn't really seem to be concerned about it. They don't seem to be concerned about being able to fill stadium 2 days in a row. Any of that. I mean, the roster's deep enough to handle 2 5-match shows, back-to-back days. There's something to be said, and I know it's a nebulous concept. It's not concrete. Of having Mania stand out being the one show a year that's 2 days long because it's the grandest stage of them all. It's the top spectacle of the year for WWE, and therefore it deserves the special status as a 2-day show.
Yeah, no, I feel that, but everything you said that preceded that, if the creative is there, the roster is like the only unknown is the creative going to be there?
Yeah.
Otherwise, everything lines up. Shorter nights, shorter pay-per-views, which we know they like, less matches per night equal out to one long ass show. Wouldn't you rather have that spread out over 2 days? This is my only counter. And again, this is equally as nebulous and abstract or whatever you want to call it. My one counter to that is it's WrestleMania. And it doesn't matter if it's 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, and everything else is 4 nights, 5 nights, 1 night, 3 night. None of them are WrestleMania. The name alone and what they do with it in terms of the big title changes, the big moments, has to be a WrestleMania. Though nothing else leads into nothing else feeds into WrestleMania like Royal Rumble does. There is no SummerSlam season. I mean, for you and I, we sort of say, okay, well, at this point, once we're past whatever pay-per-view precedes it, we're into SummerSlam season.
At some point in May, they don't hang a SummerSlam sign from the arenas for people to point at.
Right. WrestleMania.
That happens once. It's WrestleMania.
The branding kind of is everything. And I think that works because even if you do a 2-night SummerSlam, it's not WrestleMania. And if the idea is, regardless, you're going to get, like, how many matches were at WrestleMania 35 was the last WrestleMania that was 1 day. It was a really long show because altogether, including the pre-show, it had a total of, I want to say, oh my God, Larson.
Was it 15?
Including the pre-show, it was 16.
That's too many matches. I think last year, between the 2 days of WrestleMania, there was 13 matches, I want to say.
I think so,
13 or 14?
I think it was 7 per, so I think it was 14. Maybe it was 13. So, and it spread over 2 days. And again, there's a whole season. I mean, dude, you can count this year. I'm sorry. Yeah, this year, WrestleMania season effectively began at War Games. It began in November because that's when it started.
That's whenever Phil said the WrestleMania sign was there.
Right. They start to talk about it. You start to feel it. The build to WrestleMania has begun earlier and earlier every single year because WrestleMania, the build to SummerSlam happens like a couple weeks before SummerSlam.
I know.
So I think as long as they, and again, this is an abstract thing, as long as they retain that WrestleMania feel where people are talking about signs that don't exist already, then I think it'll be fine in terms of the oversaturation aspect of things.
But don't you think to, in a way, justify 2 day stadium shows for at least SummerSlam, that they would kind of have to make it to some degree, obviously not in the sense of legacy and aura, but in terms of the quality of the match card and the possibilities of huge things happening, an experience greater than or equal to WrestleMania, because if it's not year after year, they they seemingly have no problem selling tickets at exorbitant prices these days, but might have an issue justifying the 2 day thing, especially if ticket sales are not what they need to be. Again, this is an abstract conversation because it seems to be a non-issue now.
I mean, if they can sell the tickets and the creative is good, then I think they'd be fine. So, like, I mean, dude, Jesus, really? Yeah, this was the match this year at SummerSlam that they had no problem with this main event not living up to WrestleMania standards. It was Cody versus Solo Sikoa. You know,
the rest of the card was pretty good, though, wasn't
it? Gunther versus Damian Priest.
Yeah, Gunther won the title there. Yeah.
Drew McIntyre versus CM Punk with Rollins as the special guest ref.
Yeah.
Nia Jax defeated Bayley for the championship. I mean, they made LA Knight beat Logan Paul.
Yeah.
They made it feel, I mean, things happened. Things happened. They made it a big deal. And if they keep it on that level, you know, as opposed to Cody versus Roman, the third one, being at this year's SummerSlam, you know, because that's like a WrestleMania match, or maybe it's the Saudi shows are kind of the WrestleMania or better ones, which even those aren't even that these days. So, yeah, until WrestleMania goes to Saudi Arabia, which is going to happen. Anyways, next up, we've got one from Mew464. Mew says, We will not get a better WrestleMania main event than WrestleMania 40 for a decade.
I don't know if they could tell a compelling story with Cody and Cena in the main event of night 2. It could happen. Depending on, they could do a super overbooked thing if they ever do Rock Roman.
Yeah. I think Rock Roman could have been on par with Roman. The thing about Roman Cody, though, it was like a year plus build.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, you could argue it went back to Cody's return to WWE, the finishing the story thing.
Yeah.
That's why I'm actually apt to kind of agree with this, because even as good as Cody Cena, for the record, could be, and I think you're right. I think they could do a killer job with it. Man, Cody, a guy who's relevant now, who's peaking now, beating the guy who's got the modern day Bruno thing going. Man, hard to beat that one. Really hard to beat.
It's going to take It's going to take a pretty special story and a couple of competitors who are at the peak of their popularity to make. And
you throw The Rock in there, the night 1 feeding into night 2, Seth Rollins in there, and everybody coming together at the end, including Seth Rollins completely killing himself. Sorry, Seth. For Cody. God damn. That way, and the Undertaker, all that bullshit.
Yeah.
There's no way you could justify that level of overbooking melee anarchy in Cody Cena.
No, but you probably could with Roman Rock.
Probably. Yeah, probably. Yeah, maybe.
There's a way you can bring all the bloodline back into it, and Cody too, you know.
Cody, Kevin, Drew, everybody Roman tangent. Yeah. Tangential.
I'm sure there's a way you can do that based on how you laid out the story. Aldo Goodens has a hot take. Says Ospreay is the Michael Bay of wrestling. Big spectacle, over the top, flashy, bombastic, has his devout fan base, but makes my eyes glaze over within the first few minutes because every Ospreay match is terribly repetitive. Go ahead, Steve.
Replace the word Ospreay with the Young Bucks, and I agree 1,000%. Ospreay is one of the most compelling in-ring guys who does not have repetitive matches. All of his matches are unique. They're phenomenal, and I will die on that hill.
There's one thing that Will Ospreay has in his work that Michael Bay does not, and that's heart.
Substance.
Michael Bay is flash and technique for flash and technique's sake, and I don't feel that way about Will Ospreay. He's trying to tell stories. He's trying to tell stories rooted in emotion. Mm-hmm. And he does it in a way that is, incredibly athletic. And yes, it's showy in some instances, but you look under that, there's something going on there, and that's rarely the case with the Michael Bay movie.
Every once in a while, the Young Bucks will find some inspiration and put on a truly phenomenal match.
Isn't it interesting that one of their best feuds was against Roppongi Vice?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Their matches with Roppongi Vice were really good.
They were really good, yeah. Because I like those guys.
It was like them and the Lucha Brothers. Those were their best stories.
Yeah, Lucha Brothers, and then of course FTR. Like they did some phenomenal matches there.
And then Kenny and Hangman, but otherwise, yeah.
And then also Kenny and Kota Ibushi, but yeah. But your run-of-the-mill Young Bucks match is just a run-of-the-mill Young Bucks match. And I don't know that there's a run-of-the-mill Ospreay match. I honestly think that he's got this reputation because his, previous iteration of Flippy Guy. But this dude is meat and potatoes also, man. He really is. There's a lot there. There really is.
There is. And I feel like, yeah, he got the reputation for doing the high-flying stuff, but you could put him in a match where it's a street fight. He'd be one of the best wrestlers of that genre. A strike-heavy match. He could do that with the best.
Put him in the Von Erichs territory in 1980, and he'd be one of the best guys doing those big Haas matches where everybody's bleeding all over the place and everybody thinks it's real. Yeah. He'd be the best guy there, too.
Yep.
He'd make me think that shit was real, man.
Yep.
No, he's the fucking best, man.
Yeah, he is. He's on, as he likes to say, a whole other level. Time more. Hot take. Another AEW one here. The Casino Gauntlet is the best match type AEW has created. They need to make it their Royal Rumble equivalent, and that it should be a yearly thing at one of their yearly pay-per-views, and it should be for a world title shot at the biggest show instead of this Money in the Bank cash-in thing that Christian Cage has. Well, Christian's Money in the Bank, well, his Money in the Bank, he can cash in whenever. They do the Casino Gauntlet too much.
Yeah.
They just kind of, Tony Khan just kind of busts that out whenever he needs the number one contender half the time.
Mm-hmm.
Make it special. Do it once a year.
You know, the thing about the WWE is that its slate of matches and events developed over such a long period of time. You know, in 85, McMahon was like, oh, I want to do my own Starrcade. And so he did WrestleMania. And then, what was it? The Rumble came next, and that was 88?
88, yeah. But
as a pay-per-view was 89, but SummerSlam was 88.
Yeah.
The first Royal Rumble was a USA special.
It was, and it didn't determine number one contender for the World Heavyweight Championship belt till I think
not till 93.
93.
Didn't was WrestleMania the next annual pay-per-view they did?
Was it
Wasn't
Survivor
Series? Yeah, it was
87.
Survivor Series. Yeah, 87. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So then he did Survivor Series, and I'm not a fan of the first Survivor Series. There's like just so many elimination
It's
matches.
just all tag matches, yeah.
But my point is, and then the next year he did the Royal Rumble on USA. The next year he did the Royal Rumble on for pay-per-view. He did SummerSlam in 88. So it was like, and then Money in the Bank was the next like innovative match was Money in the Bank. That wasn't until 2000 and whatever.
4 or 5, whatever it was, yeah.
Right. And so it's like all these, Tony Khan's has some cool ideas.
Yeah.
But it's like he just does them all the time. He just fucking does this shit instead of like, hey, I've got this pay-per-view. We're going to call it. And it's like, yeah, he'd get shit on for basically aping the idea of the Royal Rumble by doing, we're going to do the AEW Gauntlet, whatever they were going to call it if it was a yearly pay-per-view.
Yeah.
But instead he just has the Casino Gauntlet, which is a fucking awesome match.
It is.
That, like you said, he just sort of puts out there whenever.
Just whenever he's like, well, I got no other idea how to find number one contender. It's just a Casino Gauntlet because people like it. Well, it's going to overstay its welcome. It's going to be overexposed.
It is.
It's going to feel not as special when you do it so often.
Yeah.
You got to have that one in your back pocket when you really need it. And if it's not going to be an annual pay-per-view, then just do it once a year, but don't just when the story dictates, you know?
Yeah.
If you got a situation, imagine this. We're in the same situation with this goddamn Death Rider story where you got Mox hold the title and you got, Hangman, Jay White, Darby, Orange, Christian, Cope, all these people gunning after him on that world title. And Mox is like, none of you are really worthy of this. And then Tony Khan goes, Steve, I'm going to give you a line, do it as your Tony Khan, where he comes out on stage and says, Mox, I got a way to figure out who's going to be number one contender. We're going to do Casino Gauntlet.
Mox, I got a way to determine who's going to be number one contender. We're going to do Casino Gauntlet.
There you go. And it just happened. No one expected it. It happened once a year. You don't know when it's going to happen. You save it for when the moment is right. I'm not saying that's the perfect, ideal, right moment, but that's an example of where you have a lot of people contending for the title, and you're like, all right, how are we going to figure this out? Casino Gauntlet.
I hate the name, too.
They don't need. I get it. They've established the casino thing all the way back to Double or Nothing. I get it, but
it doesn't need to have that name anymore.
No.
Why is it a casino gauntlet?
Call it like the Elite Gauntlet or something like that.
It's one of those things where it's like, God damn, this is a good idea. Why did I just waste it on that? I get, I'll be honest. Like over at WrestleJuice, there's been a couple videos that I've done where it's like, God damn, this is a good idea, and I had a good thumbnail for this. Why did I half-ass it? Or it's like I'll do a hot takes thing, and there's like 5 good video ideas within this one episode, and it's like, oh, these could have all been separate deals, but I just cheapened them all by wasting on one video. I feel like it's kind of the same thing. It's like, man, if you'd really stopped for a second and been like, God damn, wait, this match is fucking cool. We got to hold off on this. We can do a whole pay-per-view based around this match. And we're not going to call it Casino Gauntlet. We're going to call it, I don't know, something else cooler than that. More epic in tone,
Yeah. Yeah.
But they didn't do that.
They didn't do that. Imagine if someone had to defend the title.
Right.
In the Casino Gauntlet.
Yeah. My God.
Some situation like Mox. Hey, I'll show you. I could all you AEW guys are so lame. I could beat you all in one night. All right. Casino Gauntlet.
Casino Gauntlet. Yeah. Mox Gauntlet. We have one last one here from Jake Jones, 634. says NXT is great. However, HBK having people do beat for beat repeats of his old storylines and angles, like Ethan Page losing his smile in that time Roxanne collapsed in the ring, similar to Shawn in 95, is lazy. It's less cooking and more throwing someone in the microwave. Not even the air fryer. Man, I tell you what, dude. You put some day-old pizza that's been in the refrigerator in the air fryer, it's literally better than the original.
I know. For lunch, before we did this, I went and made myself a burrito. And I do this all the time. I have a lot of burritos because they're delicious and they're easy to put together with just whatever I have. But I don't wrap up my burrito and just eat it. I stick that thing in the air fryer.
Yeah.
Because usually we got some beans in the fridge. We got some leftover protein of some sort.
Yeah.
Always got plenty of salsas and stuff here because we like our burritos in this house. So I just put that all in there, wrap it up, put it in the air fryer, and it's amazing.
Is that what HBK is doing?
He does it so infrequently. Like, it's not like every week, hey, pick out Shawn Michaels' greatest hits in this episode.
So
it's here or there. It doesn't bother me.
I can think of one additional time, and that's the JC Jane turn on Gigi Dolan. Which kind of echoed the barbershop
Where
stuff.
she stomped her through the door,
The better question is, what are the next 3 Shawn Michaels angles that should be repeated?
Someone's got to have a match against somebody else and oversell a ton.
Ooh, that's good. That's good. I like that. Nathan Frazier and Obafemi.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're going to do any like more overt DX references to segments because I don't know if they. There's
a particular vulgar GIF of Shawn Michaels.
Don't see anybody doing that.
I've seen his ass cheeks a bunch during the DX days, and then what didn't he have like his dick in a sock or something? Yeah, like that's not going to happen. Have they done a screw job?
Not that I recall.
In NXT?
Not that I recall.
Because they can do a screw job.
Maybe that's a bit of a sore subject, though.
Could be. You could have one scene in NXT where like people are waiting outside. It's a tense situation, and one of the women's wrestlers are talking to Ethan Page, being like, "Oh, you know what happened, Ethan? You know God's gonna strike you down." It's
Ethan goes, "Oh, I didn't know anything about it." I swear.
Yeah. Oh, man. I don't know. I think you're right, though. I think it's too infrequent. One thing that I think he could probably stand to do is expand his... Because here's the thing. Like, the Roxanne thing, maybe not. The Ethan Page thing, you could easily motivate because Ethan Page is savvy. Like, he knows the history. They're in the same building. I feel like that was the I lost my smile bit was a bit of Ethan Page as a character intentionally...
But didn't he also subvert what actually happened versus the Shawn Michaels segment where he gave the title and left? Was that the same segment where he attacked Javon Evans?
He hit Javon Evans, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like, I'm going to set you up with this.
Yeah.
So everybody puts their guard down so that when Paige then attacks Javon Evans, it's all the more shocking.
Right, yeah. I think
it wasn't like simply, hey, I'm going to reference this and I'm going to leave for a while. That was the setup with you with a thought, oh, this is what's going to happen next. And that's not what happened at all.
I think one thing that he needs to be careful for, like specifically with the Roxanne thing, because even the JC thing can kind of be, look, within the universe of NXT, Shawn Michaels and his entire wrestling history is known. Like that is a thing. He is there. He is the guy, right? And so when Ethan Page comes out and gives kind of a wink and a nudge in an ironic way to his boss, that makes a little bit of sense. When somebody like Roxanne faints and it echoes something that happened to him that she's not doing consciously, then it becomes kind of weird because it's like, oh, wow, the guy who's the boss, who's putting the matches together, one of his people suffered the same consequences as him. You know what I mean? Like, it's not somebody being clever.
Yeah. It's just referencing. It's just
the same fate is befalling somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he needs to be careful with that. But like the wrestlers kind of mocking him to a degree, I think is fine. But again, like you said, it sort of happens so infrequently. And even the Roxanne thing can be kind of explained. She takes inspiration from him and she ended up suffering the same consequences. So I'm okay with it because everybody loves HBK. And I think people like the reference. And like you said, the bottom line is it doesn't happen that frequently.
2 or 3 instances in the 3 years Shawn Michaels been running NXT.
Yeah. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
No, I don't think it's a huge deal either.
Yeah. Anyways, that's it for our hot takes. Thanks everybody for submitting yours. We appreciate it. We have channel memberships here. Click join right here at the YouTube channel, or you can go to patreon.com/Stephen Larson and click on the Friendo Club setup. That gets you the same benefits as the memberships here. Bonus episodes, question threads, and access to the Big Blue Predictions Challenge. So thanks everybody for tuning in. We appreciate it. Till next time, we'll see you around.
Goodbye.